Okay, so get this. We're diving into online auctions today, but with a bit of a twist.
A twist.
Yeah, not just your typical eBay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is eBKray in India, and let me tell you, it's shaking things up.
I've heard of it. Intriguing.
You sent us a whole stack of stuff about it. Legal, mumbo-jumbo FAQs, even a government circular.
Sounds like a real deep dive.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It looks like eBKray is expanding beyond those bank auctions under the Sarfazi Act.
Right. The Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act.
Exactly, 2002. That one mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
But now it's moving into the big leagues with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
And that's where things get really interesting. The way eBKray is blending those old-school bank auction practices with the newer Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016.
Yeah, that whole code is all about selling off a company's assets when they're going belly up, but doing it transparently so everyone's on the same page.
And efficiently, too,
Yeah.
which is crucial in these situations.
So instead of just dealing with banks' distressed assets, eBKray is becoming the go-to place for all assets being sold off in these liquidation cases. Exactly. That's a big shift. It means more transparency because everything's in one place. Anyone can go online and see what's up for grabs.
It's like a one-stop shop for anyone looking to buy assets from companies going through liquidation.
Precisely. And from what I've seen, eBKray is really stepping up its game to attract more potential buyers. They're using digital marketing strategies and providing really detailed information about the assets.
Like what kind of details?
Oh, you name it. Photographs, videos, geographical coordinates. It's like they're creating a virtual showroom.
Wow, a virtual showroom. That's a great way to put it.
They're trying to combat that information asymmetry that often plagues traditional auctions. More details mean more informed bidders.
Which is good for both sides, right? Buyers can make smarter decisions and creditors can see better recovery rates.
Exactly. More informed bidders, more competitive prices. Makes sense. Okay, so eBKray is this central hub for asset liquidation under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. And they're making the process transparent and easy to navigate.
Seems like it.
But how does it actually work?
Well, from the sources you provided, it seems like there are three main players. The Insolvency Professionals, the bidders, and eBKray itself as the platform.
Right, like a three-legged stool.
Exactly. And the Insolvency Professionals, or IPs as they're often called, are basically running the show. They're the ones gathering information about the company's assets, listing them on the platform, and making sure the auction process runs smoothly and follows all the rules.
So they're like the referees making sure everyone plays fair.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And then you have the bidders, the individuals or companies looking to buy these assets.
And they have to register on the platform and go through that KYC verification process.
Right.
Know your customer, right?
It's standard procedure in finance.
Huh.
But it's interesting to think about how eBKray handles KYC in the online auction world. What are the challenges? How do they keep everything secure and reliable?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, with any online platform, there's always a risk of fraudsters trying to game the system.
Makes sense.
So eBKray uses a multi-layered approach to KYC. They verify identities using official documents, check addresses, and cross-reference against various databases to weed out any bad actors.
That was pretty thorough.
Very thorough. They also have strong security measures in place to protect user data and prevent unauthorized access. It's like a digital fortress protecting the whole auction process.
A digital fortress.
Yeah.
I like that. So they're not messing around when it comes to security.
Nope. And the FAQs mention that eBKray is making things really convenient for bidders, too.
Oh, yeah. Like how?
They have online document verification, and you can pay securely through their integrated payment gateway.
Wow, so no more showing up in person with briefcases full of cash.
Exactly. It's a far cry from the old days of physical auctions and piles of paperwork.
So they're making it as user-friendly as possible.
Precisely. And that's probably a smart move. By making the platform easy to use, they can attract a wider range of bidders.
More bidders, more competition, higher bids.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
I see. Okay, we've got the players. We know eBKray is focused on security and making things easy. But let's talk about the auction itself. How does that work?
Well, once the IP has listed all the asset details, the auction happens entirely online. Bidders place their bids electronically, and the highest bidder wins.
Just like any other auction.
Right, but there's a catch. The winning bid still needs to be approved by the IP.
Oh, so there's still a human element in the final decision.
Exactly. The IP needs to make sure that the winning bid makes sense, not just the highest, but also legitimate and aligned with the goals of the liquidation process.
Makes sense. So it's not just an algorithm calling the shots.
Nope. There's still a human element there making sure things are done right.
And speaking of bidding, the FAQs mention something called an earnest money deposit, or EMD. What's that all about?
Think of it like a good faith deposit to show you're serious about buying. It's a percentage of your bid that you put down.
So it's like putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. It prevents people from messing around and disrupting the process for serious buyers. And here's the cool part. eBKray's platform automatically refunds the EMD to unsuccessful bidders.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It takes the risk out of bidding.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about losing your deposit if you're not the highest bidder.
Precisely. It encourages more people to participate.
And you mentioned something earlier about bidders being anonymous during the auction.
Oh, yeah. That's a crucial feature. It ensures fairness and prevents any funny business-like collusion among bidders.
So you don't know who you're bidding against.
Nope. It's all about the bids themselves. No personal connections or external pressures influencing the outcome.
Like everyone's wearing a mask so their bids can speak for themselves. That's pretty clever.
It is. And it protects bidders from potential harassment or pressure from those who might not be happy with their bids.
So it's a safeguard to keep things fair and ethical.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered who's involved, the mechanics of the auction, and how eBKray ensures fairness and security.
But why is this whole eBKray platform so important in the bigger scheme of things? Why should we care?
Well, it all boils down to the objectives of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which is all about resolving insolvency cases quickly and efficiently. And eBKray helps by making the asset sale process more transparent and accessible.
More potential buyers, more information, more competitive bids.
It's all about maximizing the value realized from those assets so creditors can get as much of their money back as possible.
So it's not just about selling things off, it's about making the whole process smoother and faster, which benefits the entire economy.
Exactly. It's like taking a rusty old engine and giving it a complete overhaul.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So we're talking about efficiency here, streamlining a process that could otherwise be messy and time-consuming.
Precisely. And time is money, especially in insolvency cases. The faster the assets are sold, the faster creditors can be repaid, and the sooner the company can either get back on its feet or its resources can be put to better use.
So it's a ripple effect.
Exactly. And those little features in the FAQs, like automatic EMD refunds and online document verification, might seem small, but they make a big difference.
Yeah, they add up. They save time and effort for everyone involved.
And they're part of eBKray's commitment to creating a user-friendly experience. Whether you're an IP, a bidder, or just someone curious about the process, they want to make it as easy and intuitive as possible.
So they're breaking down those barriers that might have kept people away from these kinds of auctions in the past.
Exactly. Okay, so far we've covered the basics. What eBKray is, how it works, and why it matters.
But you also sent us those legal terms and conditions.
Yes, those.
They were pretty dense. What are some key takeaways for someone thinking about using eBKray?
Well, they really hammer home the importance of security and user responsibility.
In what way?
They clearly state that you're responsible for keeping your account secure, and you even have to agree to cover the company if something goes wrong because of misuse.
So they're making it clear that you have a role to play in keeping the platform safe.
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility model. And there's also the usual stuff about copyright protection for the website's content.
Standard procedure.
Right. And they also say that any disputes will be governed by the laws of Maharashtra state in India, which is where the company is based.
So they're laying down the law, so to speak.
Exactly. And they've also set up a pretty comprehensive support system.
Oh, yeah. What kind of support?
Live chat, email, phone. Support the whole shebang.
So they're there to help if you get stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they also have a fair use policy for support, which makes sense. They need to make sure they can help everyone without getting bogged down by unnecessary requests.
Right. It's about balance.
Exactly. And one last thing, the terms mention a certificate verification process.
Certificate verification. What's that?
It seems if you're using a digital certificate to bid, they need some time to verify it before you can participate in an auction.
Another layer of security.
Exactly. It makes sure that only verified users with legitimate digital identities can take part.
So they're serious about security at every stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they even advise bidders to log in a few days before an auction to avoid any last-minute issues with certificate verification.
So it's about being prepared.
Exactly. They've really thought things through and tried to anticipate any potential problems.
It's like they're holding your hand through the whole process.
In a way, they're providing the tools and support you need to navigate this complex world of online options.
So it's secure, user-friendly, and efficient.
Exactly. That's the sweet spot for a platform dealing with sensitive financial transactions and legal stuff.
This is way more interesting than I thought. We've covered a lot of ground with eBKray,
We have.
from the legal stuff to the nuts and bolts of how it all works,
A good overview.
but we've only just scratched the surface.
There's more.
Oh yeah. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll look at the kinds of properties and assets you can actually find on eBKray, the bidding strategies you can use, and the risks and rewards of taking part in these online auctions.
Sounds exciting.
It is. It's like we're about to open a treasure chest, and I can't wait to see what's inside.
I'm ready to dig in. Okay, so let's crack open this treasure chest and see what kind of goodies we can find on eBKray.
Goodies!
Well, assets. The FAQs mention a pretty wide variety, from real estate and vehicles to machinery and even intellectual property.
So it's not just about finding a steal on a foreclosed house or a used car.
Not even close. You could find anything from a factory full of equipment to the rights to a brand name.
Wow, that's pretty wild. It seems to reflect all the different things companies might own.
Exactly. And when these companies go belly up, those assets need to go somewhere.
Right. Makes sense. The FAQs specifically mention different types of real estate, residential, commercial, industrial, even agricultural.
Sounds like an investor's dream.
It does. And they give you a decent amount of detail for each listing.
Oh, yeah, you'll see things like the size of the property, number of rooms, amenities, ownership type, and of course the price range.
So you're not going in completely blind.
No, you get a basic idea of what you're looking at and whether it's worth your time.
What about the condition of the property? Do they tell you anything about that?
They do say that details about the condition are often available, and they allow for pictures and videos so you can get a visual.
Oh, that's helpful. But I imagine there are still risks buying assets online, especially when you can't see them in person.
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest risks is not being able to fully assess the condition before you bid. Pictures and videos can only show you so much.
Right. There could be hidden problems that you don't see online.
Exactly, and that's where things can get a little hairy.
What about legal issues or encumbrances on the property? How does eBKray handle that?
That's where due diligence comes in. You have to do your homework before bidding. The FAQs mention ownership details, but you should always verify that information independently.
So you don't want to end up in a legal mess after winning the auction.
Definitely, buyer beware still applies even online.
Makes sense. Speaking of bidding, let's talk strategy. The FAQs don't really go into specifics.
Right.
But I'm guessing there are some general principles that apply to any auction, online or offline.
Oh, absolutely. Some timeless wisdom.
Okay, I'm all ears. What should I keep in mind if I'm bidding on eBKray?
First rule, set a budget and stick to it no matter what.
Easy to say, harder to do when you get caught up in the moment.
It is. It's easy to get carried away.
Like being at a casino, you gotta know when to walk away.
Exactly. And it's always a good idea to research comparable assets to get a sense of their market value.
So you know what a fair price is.
Exactly. You don't want to overpay or underbid.
Knowledge is power, especially in the auction world.
And remember, eBKray auctions usually have a reserve price, the minimum the seller will accept.
Right, so there's no point in bidding below that.
Nope. It's like trying to haggle for a candy bar.
You're not going to get very far.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And try to avoid getting sucked into bidding wars.
Bidding wars, yeah, those can get out of control.
I can. Sometimes it's better to sit back and see what happens.
Let the others fight it out.
Exactly. Like a poker game, sometimes you gotta hold back.
Be patient, strategic.
And another crucial thing, remember, once you place a bid, you can't take it back.
Oh, so no buyer's remorse allowed.
Nope. Double check that bid amount before you hit submit.
It's like those old game shows, no takebacks.
And finally, patience is a virtue in the auction world.
Patience.
Yeah. Sometimes the best deals come to those who wait.
So don't jump at the first shiny object you see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be selective, do your research, and don't be afraid to sit out a few rounds. You might find a hidden gem.
Like a true treasure hunter.
Exactly. You gotta have the patience and the eye for opportunity.
I like it. Okay, so we've got a handle on the types of assets and some bidding strategies.
Seems like it.
But I want to go back to the legal stuff that government circular you sent said eBKray is now mandatory for all asset sales under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code.
It is a big deal. It
Yeah.
basically says any assets being sold in these liquidation cases have to be listed on eBKray.
No exceptions.
Nope. It's all about making the process more transparent and efficient.
And this mandatory listing is that new.
Pretty new, yeah. The circular says it went into effect on November 1st, 2024.
So a very recent change.
Very recent. We're seeing a big shift in how asset sales are handled.
It sounds like the Indian government is serious about using technology to make these complex processes smoother.
Absolutely. The IBBI, the folks who regulate insolvency and bankruptcy, are pushing for more transparency and efficiency, and eBKray is their tool of choice.
It's fascinating to see these different worlds collide, online auctions and complex legal frameworks.
It is a unique combination.
It makes you wonder, could this model be used for other types of sales or even in other countries?
It's definitely worth exploring. It could be a game changer.
And for our listeners, think about the possibilities. If this works, could we see similar platforms popping up all over the place?
Potentially.
Handling everything from foreclosures to intellectual property sales, it really shows how technology is shaking things up, not just in business, but in law and finance as well.
Absolutely. It's a brave new world out there.
It is. But for now, let's bring our focus back to India and the human side of eBKray.
The human side.
Yeah, behind all these listings and bids, there are real people dealing with real challenges.
That's true. We shouldn't forget that.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the stories behind these auctions, the motivations, the consequences, what it all means for the people involved and for the Indian economy as a whole.
Sounds like a fitting end to our exploration.
We've really dug deep into eBKray, haven't we? It's this online auction platform in India, changing how assets are sold off when companies go under.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is, but I think it's important to remember the human side of all this. Behind the legal stuff and the bidding strategies.
Right. These aren't just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. Real people are affected by all this. And the FAQs mention that even individuals can participate in these auctions.
It does open things up for people who might not have had a chance before, to buy things like property or equipment.
It's like eBKray is leveling the playing field, giving people a shot at things they might not have been able to afford otherwise.
Think about a small business owner finally being able to get that specialized machine they've always needed.
Or a family buying their dream home through an auction. It's pretty amazing.
It is. It's about creating opportunities.
But what about the companies going through liquidation? What happens to them?
Well, liquidation is usually a last resort, when all other options have been exhausted.
It's not something anyone wants to go through.
And there are real people behind those businesses, owners, employees, suppliers.
People whose lives are turned upside down.
Exactly. And while the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code tries to make the process fair and transparent, it doesn't take away the emotional impact.
Right. Jobs are lost. Businesses close. It could be tough on everyone involved.
It's a reminder that there's a human cost to all this.
But amidst all that, there's also a sense of renewal. Assets finding new life with new owners.
It's like a cycle of creative destruction.
Exactly. Resources being reallocated for better use.
And that can lead to innovation and growth.
So while there are losses, there's also potential for new beginnings.
It's about finding the silver lining.
What about the bigger picture, though? What does all this mean for the Indian economy?
Well, a faster, more efficient way to handle insolvency cases can definitely boost economic growth.
How so?
Well, when things get resolved quicker, it means less money is stuck in assets that aren't productive. It frees up capital to be reinvested.
So it's like unclogging a pipe, allowing resources to flow.
Exactly. And that can lead to new businesses, new jobs, more economic activity.
It's a chain reaction.
And a stronger insolvency process also makes India more attractive to foreign investors.
Because they know there's a system in place.
Exactly. It creates stability and predictability.
It's like laying a solid foundation for the future.
And for anyone out there thinking about trying online auctions, whether it's in India or anywhere else.
Do your homework.
Exactly. Understand the rules, do your research, and don't be afraid to get advice from someone who knows what they're doing.
It's a world of opportunity, but you got to be prepared.
Well said.
So that's our deep dive into the world of eBKray.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did, from the legal nitty-gritty to the human stories and the impact on the Indian economy.
It's a fascinating story of technology and change.
It really is. And it shows how India is embracing innovation to create a more transparent and efficient system for everyone.
I think that's a great takeaway.
And for our listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an eye on how technology is shaping our world, because who knows what exciting developments are just around the corner.